Hello ladies and gentlemen, Nick here and welcome to my ranking of the Harry Potter films. Recently I did a ranking of the mini ranking of the Fantastic Beasts films so far. Yes, I know it's only 2 of them, but they'll get updated each time a new film comes out, and I did that because I'm doing an overall ranking in a few weeks' time for the entire Wizarding World series. That's why I thought I should do one of those then, and I'm doing a Harry Potter one now. So the Harry Potter films we will be taking a look are Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1, and Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2. Yep, and this is possibly my second favourite film franchise after James Bond. And one of my favourite book series. In fact, I think book series it's my favourite, and film series second favourite. And my number one choice of this ranking, which I expect you all know what that is my number 2 film of all time. And this has been a wonderful film series. It's so wonderful. And recently rewatching it, I probably loved it even more than ever now. And originally I had 3 10 out of 10s, 2 9 out of 10s, and 3 8 out of 10s. However, now the 8 out of 10s have been promoted to 9, and the previous 2 9 have joined the other 3 10s as 10s. So now we're only looking at 9s and 10s instead of 8, 9, and 10s. But you can tell how great the franchise is if there was nothing lower than an 8 previously, and now nothing lower than a 9 at 9 following the rewatches and reviews. So, let's get started with number 8. Now, number 8 has always been my least favourite, but that's more due to the story rather than the film itself. The film, actually, I think, is less... the film, for me, is actually less teeth-grinding and easier to sit through than reading the book, because the book does go into more detail, which is great for a book, but for this particular story, it can be a bit annoying. It can be teeth-grating. You can dig your claws into something. It's not really so much the story, it's just what the story is about, until we get to the climax. That's easily the best thing about this movie and the book as well. And this is Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. Yeah, for me, Order of the Phoenix isn't really the best of a story. I think the film does its best, and new screenwriter Michael Goldberg do their best to adapt the story. But the story itself is a little bit annoying in places, and not just with Umbridge, but with the whole Ministry not believing Harry and Dumbledore, and it can get a bit teeth-grating, and Umbridge coming in, and it can be quite annoying in places, and this is for both mediums. However, I think the film wasn't as tough to get through last time. It was actually quite good in many places. I do think there are some things from the book that should have been included, such as the Snape's memory extended. I think we should have an extended scene there. And I really wanted some more Dumbledore's army stuff. However, the climax takes up quite a bit of time, and it's awesome. It's really great. It was such a great climax, and I applaud them for that. However, it can be quite tough to sit through in some viewings due to the story, and yes, the story just isn't that amazing. However, it is brilliantly put to film and executed really well, and I actually ended up enjoying it a lot more than previously on the latest viewings. So that's why, in my opinion, of this film has gone up. As for story, a little bit actually, or at least the film version. I'm not so sure about the book. I think the book one would definitely be lower than a 9. However, the film manages to succeed in telling enough of that book in its story. So yeah, and I'll give it praise for trying to adapt as much as it can. It is the longest book. I don't know if you can see there. No, up a bit further up. It is the longest book, and it did at the time. It was the shortest film before Deathly Hallows Part 2 came along, and possibly the Fantastic Beasts films. But well, I'm not sure. Maybe, but yeah. I think they did a great job with what they had to adapt. I'm just not the biggest fan of the story. I do like quite a lot of it, like the climax and some of the Grawp stuff and the romance story between Harry and Cho and Dumbledore's army, and quite a lot of the other stuff is necessary. So you can have Dumbledore's army, which of course trains up these students in preparation for their battle in two books, 3 films time. Plus, in Neville, Luna, and Ginny's case, alongside Harry, Ron, and Hermione at the Ministry later on. But yeah, that's Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. I think it's a great film. I'm just not the biggest fan of the story. Though, with that, I can blame J.K. Rowling more than the screenwriter because it is adapting the original Order of the Phoenix story. I'm not saying it's bad, I'm just saying sometimes it's difficult to read or watch, or if I had the audiobook version, listen. It's just a tough story to go through. But once that's over, we got something a little bit easier to digest. However, that being said, with its film counterpart, my number 7 choice does lose quite a bit of stuff from the book that I think should have been included and needs to be included in a future film installment. This film is, of course, Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. Enjoyed this one. I don't know if this is because I'm getting excited for the finale, or because it's a slight overreaction after Order of the Phoenix. But that being said, I enjoyed that a lot more on this rewatch, and the same could be said for Half-Blood Prince. I really enjoyed all of these films on a rewatch, some of them more than ever. But yeah, I think the problem with Order of the Phoenix is it focuses on specific angles more than others, and yet some of those other angles should have been the main focus, or a main focus. The Horcrux stuff is a focus, but it's mainly on the main focus, which is fine. That's for the story, but I would have liked a little bit more about Tom Riddle's backstory and how he became Voldemort. Instead, we get quite a lot of a romance story, lots of teen drama, which is fine, but some of it can be a bit cringy, and it does shadow over the main plot, which is Harry and Dumbledore trying to find the Voldemort's secret weapons, secret defences, and eventually try and destroy them. However, when it does do that, I think it is done brilliantly, and even the teen romance stuff is very good handled as well. It's just a shame there's a bit too much of it, and it can get a bit cringy in places, but it's still handled well. And of course, we are seeing Malfoy trying to kill Dumbledore as well. He's trying to assassinate him, and Snape trying to help. It's all part of the plan he and Dumbledore set up to see Deathly Hallows Part 2. But yeah, I just think the main focus about the Horcruxes, discovering the Horcruxes, is a little bit overshadowed by the teen romance and drama stuff. And yeah, I know David Yates wanted a bit more of a romantic film, but I think we should have had it a little bit better. Plus, also, I know lots of fans of the books have complained about Ginny's character development in the films, and I can safely say, yeah, I can understand that. And I think this could have been a good time to sort out the problems of the previous installments in that problem. But I don't really think they do in any of them. Maybe 7 and 8 at the closest. Though that being said, she does get a nice beefed up part in the film, although she did get some great stuff to do in 5. And yeah, that's really about it for Half-Blood Prince. It is trying to get a bit more of a darker feel to it, and a bit more investigating, and Hogwarts isn't safe anymore. Well, we've known that since Goblet of Fire, but even less so. And it'll be even less so than that after Dumbledore's death. Spoiler alert. But yeah, final scene is handled well, and whilst we don't see Dumbledore's funeral or the White Tomb, the latter we would see in Deathly Hallows Parts 1 and the very start of Part 2, I do love it when all of the students and teachers hold up their wands to get rid of the Dark Mark. That was a brilliant scene, and it doesn't quite completely make up for no funeral scene or White Tomb, but it does sort of make up. So, Half-Blood Prince, great film and adapting a great story. Yeah, well, I just would have liked a bit more adapted. Some things I think were neatly cut, but some things I think could have been added in, and some things they shouldn't needed to bother with. So that's Half-Blood Prince. Number 6 is the best of the 9 out of 10 films, and this one is only really a 9 out of 10 because it's a very road trip film in the second hour for the most part, second and a bit hours. I think you'll know what film this is. However, it is part 1 of the epic finale, and like Half-Blood Prince, I can still get really excited and enjoy this film really a ton of a lot, even if it does kind of sort of in around the middle start just becoming a road trip film and not really doing much for about 15 to 20 minutes, maybe even for half an hour or so. But it's still a great film. And this is, of course, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1. Yeah, this is a really great setup. This is a brilliant setup to the Deathly Hallows story. It's brilliant stuff. And yeah, it's got to get through all the setup, all the building stuff from the book. But, you know, that wasn't too bad. It was brilliant adapting that. And I think this is the last closest adaptation of the series. I mean, 6 and 8 are kind of a little less, they kind of take a bit more liberties when it comes to the adaptation. 7's I think is a bit more closer, and things that they add, like the dancing, are actually pretty good. And yeah, it's some really great stuff and some good setup. It's mostly setup, and that's probably why it's so low, as well as the fact it's mostly the road trip film, road trip angle. But I think it's handled well enough to deserve a high regard from fans of the series. Maybe not so much from critics, but certainly from fans of the film series and fans of the book series. It can be held in a good light, especially considering what comes later down the line. It has the more of the interesting and enjoyable stuff. This one is all the build up and stuff. Plus, I also think this film or Goblet of Fire has the best film score. I love all of the scores, but I think either this one or Goblet of Fire has the best. I think Goblet of Fire, but then this one would be a very close second. After Hedwig's theme, the opening of Goblet of Fire and the opening of Deathly Hallows Part 1 are the best opening tracks, excluding Hedwig's theme uses in the other ones. And when I say Hedwig's theme as the number 1, I'm mainly talking about Philosopher's Stone. So, yeah, Deathly Hallows Part 1, brilliant setup. Of course, the more interesting stuff will be coming in Part 2, but I think Part 1 is an epic movie in its own right. And yeah, and even with both films being filmed at the same time and edited at the same time, probably, this film still is able to have its own identity, and Part 2 has a bit more of an identity. They both installments have kind of their own identity in a way, which is really great. So yeah. And now we move on to the top 5, which are all 10 out of 10s. And number 5. Now, with number 5, this film, unlike with the 2 Deathly Hallows films, this film does seem to have a bit... I mean, all of the films have their own identity, but this film has a little bit... But this film seems to be closer to sharing the identity with its predecessor. Whether this is due to the same director, same composer, or just all around same feel, but slightly darker. And yet, definitely Hallows Part 2 kind of had that, but that felt different enough from Part 1. So, yeah, I don't know, but Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets seems very similar to Harry Potter and the Prisoner of the Philosopher's Stone in quite a few ways, whilst also retaining some differences. So, anyway, number 5 is, of course, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. Yeah, the second installment of the series. Now, it's only really here because I do think the next two films, and the previous one and the last one are better. I think those are the top 4. Chamber of Secrets is still a 10 out of 10 after rewatching it. So I thought, oh my god, that was brilliant. It's a brilliant adaptation. This and the first film, and it manages to be such a brilliant film in its own right, and they managed to do it spectacularly practical and visual effects. And like Philosopher's Stones, many of the visual effects pretty much hold up to this day. Still hold up. There might be one or two. I think the Basilisk is slightly better done than it is better done than the three-headed dog, Fluffy. But yeah, I think some really great stuff here, and it's a very good story. It just has a very similar feel to Philosopher's Stone. It doesn't do a huge amount of new things in terms of tone, apart from being a little bit darker. But I still think it's a really entertaining and really brilliant story, and definitely a great second entry. Number 4. Number 4 is... this film is my friend Ollie Pajak, aka Mr. TARDIS 11's favourite Harry Potter film, so he'll be glad to know it's in the top half of this ranking, and also that I gave it a 10 out of 10 recently. And this film takes the franchise in a completely different direction to what it had previously seen, with the more light-hearted films coming before that. This one starts to move into the very dark territory, but still retaining some light until the very end, and then that's when things really jump into gear for the darkness of the rest of the series. And by the looks of it, it looks like I prefer the lighter, more magical films of this series, but in all honesty, I also really enjoy the dark ones as well, the dark, serious stories as well. It's just that I think the earlier films and one later film were the best made, and that's why they're in this specific ranking. This film goes pretty dark early on, but doesn't go too dark until possibly the climax, and then that sets up the tone for the rest of the series. And it's brilliant. And I think, I don't know if the director said that they had intended this to happen, but it certainly feels like the last film of childhood innocence before we go into more adult-themed stuff in the next story. Or by the very end of this story anyway, at least. And this is Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. Yeah, this story is definitely one for a more mature audience. Following the previous 3 films, it's certainly got more mature themes, more mature content. It can be a bit more dangerous, darker stuff. The opening scene is pretty dark, with Voldemort murdering a Muggle just listening in there, but that's part of his character, to be honest. But it gets super dark at the very end. It's possibly the darkest moment of the franchise pre-Part 2. With the murder of Cedric Diggory. And whilst there have been several deaths and disappearances throughout the films, this one probably affects Harry the most, since his parents, or at least Sirius or Dumbledore, but certainly affects him for Order of the Phoenix, and his guilt about it going forward after that. and it's shocking to see a 17, I think he was in his 6th year, a 6th year 17-year-old murdered by, well, everyone says Voldemort, but we know it's Peter Pettigrew. But yeah, that was quite shocking. I'm sure audiences wouldn't have been expecting that, same unless they'd read the book, and I bet the readers probably weren't expecting that, or the listeners to the audiobook. Before that, you've got quite a lot of dark themes throughout the film, but it's manages to still have some really great magical charm to it throughout, despite being a bit more of a darker or a more moodier tone than before. And I think Mike Newell does a fantastic job with it, and I think he might possibly be the best director of the series. I love Chris Columbus's magical whimsy style in the first 2 films. Alfonso Cuarón's dark but still relatively innocent take on Prisoner of Azkaban, and David Yates' superb directing the final 4 installments and the first 2 Fantastic Beasts. I think he might come back for the third, but I think Mike Newell, when it comes to dark tone, is possibly the best. When it comes to directing a dark story, maybe Yates, but when it comes to bring a dark tone to it, it's definitely Newell, at least to a Harry Potter story anyway. So yeah, brilliant. And also, each of the directors get a film in the top 4 spots. And it's time to move on to Chris Columbus for number 3. Number 3 is the first installment of the series, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. Also known as Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone in the United States, Pakistan, and India. Philosopher's Stone is the very first installment and possibly the best adapted book to film of the series. It is so wonderful. The introduction to this world is wonderful. Magical, whimsy, innocent, light-hearted, fun, enjoyable. That's what the first one was. That was always going to be the case. I mean, yeah, a little bit darker towards the end, but you know, that was always going to be the start. The start was always going to be the magical, adventurous start to this wonderful world that both Harry and the audience, slash reader slash listener, in the case of the book and audiobooks, but going by film, audience are seeing for the first time, and it is outstanding. It is amazing how they managed to do this. And not only that, but they're able to keep it up for 7 more films. And it's just wonderful. And like I said with Chamber of Secrets, most of the CGI holds up. The closest thing that I think comes to not being that realistic is the CGI is the 3-headed Fluffy. But even that looks impressive. This is 2001, so visual effects were amazing by that point, but would start looking a bit dated by today's standards, depending on the film. And in this case, they hold up. They hold up so well, and you can believe what you are seeing is real. In some things, they do use quite good practical effects on and trick you into thinking it's CG, like in Goblet of Fire with the quill pen, which was used in that one scene with Rita Skeeter and Harry in the broom cupboard. But yeah, this Philosopher's Stone, just an amazing start. Outstanding film, and kicks off the series, both books and films, outstandingly. And I love the Philosopher's Stone story anyway. So yeah, I'm very happy. So yeah, fantastic start. Well done everybody. Should be absolutely proud of yourself, because we got a fantastic start. And you can tell how fantastic it is. It's number 3 on this list. When all other films, bar 2, have come lower, this one still reigns supreme after 18 years. Come November, after 18 years, it's still an outstanding movie. What else could be outstanding? Well, our numbers 2 and 1 spots, starting with number 2. And this is a brilliant film. Brilliant story as well as with the books. Yeah, same like with the films. Some of the stories from the books I prefer more than others, and I think the story we got here is brilliant. And I love how Alfonso Cuarón, our director for this film, takes the light-hearted story but makes it darker, but at the same time still quite innocent and light-hearted. And I think this one might even be the most comedic installment of the series, whilst Half-Blood Prince is the most romantic. This would be the most comedic, despite going a bit darker with the themes and the tone and the storyline. And this is, of course, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. Yeah, from what I hear, this one's a popular one, despite being the lowest grossing installment, or at least of this series. Fantastic Beasts, I think, are a little less grossing, at least. I think. I might be wrong. But Prisoner of Azkaban, brilliant story. Loving how we're maturing into teenagers. The characters are maturing into teenagers, although Ron and Hermione should be teenagers by the end of Chamber of Secrets, going by their birthdays. But certainly all three of them are maturing into teenagers, and the characters are just absolutely brilliant. It's a darker story, as I mentioned, with the introduction of the Dementors and Sirius Black and his connection with James and Lily and everything around that and what you're supposed to think, and then a twist comes a bit later on. And also with the whole tone, and I suppose with the teenage growing up, coming of age story, in a way, it does also help. And these films are brilliant as coming of age stories as well as fantasy adventures. Just great. Yeah, this one's just absolutely brilliant, and fantastic final score from John Williams. As much as I love Philosopher's Stone and Chamber of Secrets' scores, and I thought they were absolutely amazing. I think Prisoner of Azkaban, he wasn't really around to do much of Chamber of Secrets, so someone else had to come in and reuse a couple of Philosopher's Stone scores in this as well, and I think that kind of helps with making it a bit of a samey feel. But I think Prisoner of Azkaban, he's able to give it a bit more of a different score to the previous two, so he's able to mix it up a little bit. And then each composer afterwards would mix up following films after. And I think Goblet of Fire is my favourite film soundtrack. Well done, Patrick Doyle. Jimmy didn't come back, but Nicholas Hooper and Alexander Desplat did brilliant jobs, especially Desplat on part 1, Deathly Hallows part 1, and making that difference to Deathly Hallows part 2. But all in all, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, just amazing, absolutely amazing. Don't like how it ends on the final shot, on the final freeze frame with Harry smiling on his broomstick, and it kind of looking like it's kind of funny effect with it kind of going back. I'm not sure how you describe it, but that final freeze frame, yeah, not the biggest fan of that. Well, anyway, moving on to number 1. Number 1 is my personal favourite Harry Potter film, personal favourite Wizarding World film, so that pretty much spoils that ranking, and my second favourite film of all time, and the best film I've seen at the cinema, because my number 1 film I didn't get to see at the cinema, or I haven't yet. If they do a special screening at some point, I might be able to. But in the meantime, this is my favourite film that I've seen at the cinema, which is why it went on to the main channel for its review, same for part 1s. And this is, of course, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2. This film is epic. This is an outstanding film. The only real problems I have with it is some of the changes it has from the books in the climax, such as Harry not revealing much about how Voldemort wasn't the master of the Elder Wand. I think he should have talked to him a bit more about that whilst dueling. And also Voldemort's death, I think that could have been handled a little bit better. But besides a few nitpicks but besides a few changes from the book problems, I think this is a fantastic movie. It just handles everything so well. You'd be forgiven for thinking the stuff in the first half hour is from part one, but I think that's this film's style. It's able to trick you into things that should be in part one and then go all out into things that would only be in part two. But yeah, the Gringotts stuff is amazing, and it wraps up the road trip story brilliantly. And then we go to Hogwarts, and we have the epic fight. I mean, some people might be let down with it, and yeah, it would have been nice to see a bit more of the battle, but it's still really cool, really entertaining. It's got some great stuff, lots of great fights. Characters' stories are coming full circle, although some of them are a bit better done in the books. Could have been a bit more fleshed out, but it's still a fantastic final film for this series, and it's just absolutely amazing and well done. I think best performances could be in this one. I mean Daniel Radcliffe could arguably be in Order of the Phoenix, to be honest. Emma Watson's in Half-Blood Prince would definitely Hallows Part 1. Rupert Grint would definitely be Part 1 or Part 2. But they definitely, all of them have some of their best performances in this installment. And everyone just goes all in. Just like with Philosopher's Stone, they go all in on creating such an epic finale 10 years after they started. Just a bit like with the books, really. And just absolutely epic. And the decision to turn it into two films, adapt Deathly Hallows into two films, is a stroke of genius. Some people might say, oh, it's a bit of a cash cow. But no, it's honest to God helped with doing the story. Otherwise, you've got Deathly Hallows as a 4-hour film or a rushed 3-hour film. And you don't want a rushed 3-hour Deathly Hallows. You want it to be like the other films. You want it to base it as much of the book as possible and do a fantastic job of it. And I think both installments succeed. And yeah, I think part one succeeds more in the adaptation section. I think part two it succeeds more in the film section, being a great, amazing film. And yeah, it's just amazing. I just love this film. I'm sad that it ends on a sad track of the soundtrack, or at least a track that makes me feel sad. I would have loved something a bit more happy or exciting, basically maybe a bombastic theme of Hedwig's theme, one last blast of it, like we do with the Star Wars themes at the end of Star Wars episodes 3 and 6 when it comes to the end of those trilogies, and hopefully 9 when it comes out. But something a bit more happy and bombastic, or just happy, lift the spirits up, or just happy you've had this experience watching all 8 amazing films. And yeah, and the series has come to an amazing end, but it ends on a kind of a sad note in a way. I know sad that it's coming to an end, but we also want to feel happy. And yeah, I suppose it's just as well we got more films coming now, because if this was to be the final one, yeah, I probably would get sad every time. But thankfully we do have the prequel films coming out, and hopefully we will get a Cursed Child film or films later down the line. But that's hopes, not saying that will happen, just saying it hopefully. And I hope we'll get a film or films where we focus more on Voldemort's rise to power, pointed throughout the ages series, perhaps. But in the meantime, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2 is outstanding. And whilst I may have a few issues with some of his changes from the books, and I think the books did it better, I think it is still an outstanding film and wraps up the series on a fantastic and spectacular level. Critics consider it satisfying. I consider it outstanding. And so that's my Harry Potter ranking, and I'll just recap the list. Number 8 is Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, the 5th film. Number 7 is Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, the 6th film. Number 6 is Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1, the 7th film, the first part of the finale. Number 5 is Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, the second film. Number 4 is Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, the fourth film. And shout out to Ollie Pajak, aka Mr. TARDIS Review, Mr. TARDIS 11, not Mr. TARDIS Reviews, that's someone else. Mr. TARDIS 11, that's his favourite film of the series. Shout out to you, my friend. You have a very, very great choice. Number 3 is Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, or Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone for American, Indian, and Pakistan viewers and readers and listeners as well. Then that's the first one. Number 2 is Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, the second one, second instalment. And number 1 is, of course, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2, the 8th and final instalment and the second part of the epic finale. And currently the final chronological instalment of the film series. Like I said, unless they make Cursed Child, that's going to be how it will stay. No matter how many prequels they have. This will be the final chronological installment of Wizarding World until they make anything that's set afterwards, such as Cursed Child, for example. Like I said, this probably won't happen, or at least not for a while. 2026 is probably the earliest time we'll get a Cursed Child film by my predictions. And by that point, Fantastic Beasts would have wrapped up and they might start considering doing Quidditch throughout the ages. Maybe, like I said, they could do the Voldemort Rise to Power story then. It's all tying together now, isn't it? Anyway, that's it from me. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye. Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the official Nicholas Payne Retro YouTube channel. Harry Potter and Deathly Hallows Part 2 is possibly my second favourite film of all. And one of my... So, yeah. Though I can relate that more. Though I can blame more not saying it's bad, I'm just saying it's not the best. It's not the best one. Yeah. So, Half-Blood Prince, I think it was a great film, great story as well. It's adapted, well, mostly a great story. Sorry, I'll start again. Number 6, I think is possibly this is of course Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1. Shit. Certainly has the second best opening music in opening film theme music. Actually, no, Hedwig's theme's the best one. It's the third best opening theme after Hedwig's theme at the start of Philosopher's Stone, Chamber of Secrets. And, well, sort of Prisoner of Azkaban. It's also in its Chamber of Secrets and Prisoner of Azkaban. After Hedwig's theme, this and in between, after Hedwig, and it may look like I prefer the lighter, quite a good shocking scene. However, before that, you got a film of dark, but it's a bit more of a light. It's weird, so I have to say, Goblet of Fire might be my favourite sound. Excuse me. But yeah, but in the meantime, some people consider it satisfying, especially critics. And the first part of the Deathly Hallows adaptation, and the first part of the finale. Number 5 is Harry Potter and the Chamber. Number 3 is Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. No, it's not. Like I said, unless they make Cursed Child, that's going to stay this.